3 weeks, okay, at 3 weeks, it's time to get professional help. So if you are at a point where you had that ache and pain for 3 weeks, your inflammation process, your scar tissue is starting to build, your functional movement patterns are starting to become compensatory. And from that point forward, it's getting harder to treat, and it's going to be more likely that you're going to have some type of a permanent residual effect from that problem. So particularly for the guys in the group, because traditionally guys are really stubborn and slow to go seek medical care, if it's been more than 3 weeks, go get help. And I say that whether it's to us or anybody else, your primary care, if you've had an infection that you're not sure if it needs antibiotics or not, if it's been 3 weeks, go get help. Does that make sense to everyone? And so if you can just use simple rules like that to guide your practice and then try to seek the right professional for your care, hopefully that will get you through the healthcare system quicker and get you to a more expedient result. Some of the studies that have come out in the last few years, probably back pain is one of the most common things we treat, and it's the #1 complaint to medical professionals besides the common cold or some type of an infection. So if we look at back pain and we look at the research, if you actually get to a physical therapist and begin treatment in less than 4 weeks' time, you will be better in less than 2 months' time. If you wait more than 6 months to get care, you probably aren't going to get 100% recovery, and it's going to take a long time to get the care. So just the data on this stuff has really started to build over the last few years. Early intervention, get it treated, get it better, move on with your life. You'll get everything back. The longer you leave it, the less likely you are to recover, and the longer it's going to take, and the more frustrated you're going to be, more limited you'll be functionally. Okay, so what we do as opposed to an orthopedic surgeon, besides the fact that they're doing surgery and we're not, they change anatomy. When you have a hip replacement, a knee replacement, if you have a complex fracture that requires plates or screws, or if you have a multi-level cervical fusion, like I have here from after put stuff in, and you have a completely new and different anatomy after that. Whereas in physical therapy, we influence physiology. In your primary care, they're influencing the internal medicine physiology. We're influencing the musculoskeletal physiology. So hopefully that makes sense for everyone. And if we draw a comparison to the internal medicine with the infections, and you go see your primary care doctor and they give you antibiotics for an infection, and they say, hey, take this. You need to take 2 a day for the next 2 weeks, and that should kill your infection. How many of you go home and go, well, you know, I think I'll take it every other day and I'll stop after a week? Is that what everybody does? Do you have any expectation of getting better if you do that? Probably not, right? So in the same way, in going to a physical therapist, if the prescription is to come, say, 3 times a week for the next 6 weeks, and that's what it's going to take to influence the physiology for the healing necessary for that injury, and you say, well, I'll go once a week, I'll go hit and miss, you're probably not going to get better. Your expectations are unrealistic. Don't expect that that's going to be a help. And then you add those things together to that component of, I tried physical therapy and it didn't work for me, and I throw out one more component and I say, all right, so how many people say, I tried car mechanic, that didn't work for me? Anybody say that? I tried heart surgeon, that didn't work for me. Anybody with that one? Or I tried hairstylist, that didn't work for me. What would anybody say? Yeah, okay. So you're the one that said it, you volunteered. If you said that, what did you do as a result? Did you never go to another hairstylist again?
I didn't for a long time, actually. My hair is to my butt, and so I don't like hairstylists just because they always cut off too much, and so my fix is not to go. Rarely or as often. I usually go maybe like once, maybe twice a year. So, but it's hair. It's not a body part that's going to fall off. So, and I'm not a guy, so it's okay. I can get away with hair in my butt, and people won't look at me funny. So, it's okay. But it works. Avoidance.
So avoidance is one option. Would it be fair to suggest that maybe you need the right hairstylist? A better hairstyle?
Oh, yeah.
To do and get you the results that you want to get?
yeah. It's a little more difficult in Central Arkansas, but yes, that's the goal.
So there's a difficulty in finding an expert that in that particular field for you that does what you need because of your geographic location.
Right.
But if you could find one that was different, that cut your hair the way you wanted and gave you the style the way you wanted, would that be a better option?
Oh yes. I have found one in DC, and so whenever I'm in DC, I do tend to stop in and get it taken care of.
Okay.
But that's about it.
So there are some out there that are different than others. Is that a fair assessment then? Not all hairstylists are created equal.
That's right.
Not all cardiologists are created equal. Not all car mechanics are created equal. Not all plug in whatever it is that you do for a living and vocation are created equal. Does everybody at least agree with that component, right? So hopefully you would take and apply the same thing and say, hey, any profession is not a commodity, right? They're not all the same. So finding one that you have rapport with, whether it's your psychologist or your primary care doctor, or your OBGYN or your cardiologist or your hairstylist, you need to find one that is an expert in their field, that does what they do well, and that you have a rapport with that gets you the results that you're looking for. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So that would be my thing about, I tried physical therapy, it didn't work for me. It's unfortunate. The reason that that's such an area that I dwell on is because, unfortunately, if you follow the data for the insurance companies over the last 5 years and you look at access to the health systems for non-surgical musculoskeletal injuries, which we've already established is what a physical therapist should be treating, only 8% of all people with that diagnosis ever get to a physical therapist. They get to their primary care, they get to their orthopedic surgeon, they might get to a chiropractor if it's a back problem, but 8%, that's less than 1 out of 10, ever actually get professional physical therapy care. And then if out of that 8% they haven't had a good experience, we're probably talking 1% of all people that probably need that type of care are actually repeat customers who have found somebody that they go back to and trust, like your hairstylist in DC. To me, that's just scary. It says awful things about our profession. It says not very favorable things about the health system and navigating the health system. And it tells me that there's at least 92% of the people out there that need help that aren't getting it. So that particularly for me is a pet peeve and a problem. So that's why I dwell on that a little bit, to say, hey, look, if you haven't had a great experience with a physical therapist, on behalf of our profession, I apologize. But as an advocate for you as a patient, I'm saying find a better one. And it doesn't have to be us. If you're in Arkansas, we're not convenient. But find somebody who is an expert and who you have rapport with and can help you get the results that you need. Does that make sense to everyone? So for those folks that had that bad experience, I wish you well in the future. If we can help you find somebody else, even if it's not us, we'd be happy to help you do that. So what makes us a little bit different and why we think it's important, I think as a truly locally owned private practice, we're highly dependent on our community. We're not part of a hospital system. We don't have corporate referral processes. We don't get the benefit of being physician owned where the physicians say go here because that's where we have a vested interest. So we have to earn our business. 50% of our business is people who have seen us in the past that come back. So that means they are having a good experience. They did trust us, they did get results, and they are coming back to us. I would encourage people, if you're not sure, take a look on Google like you do with everything else. If you want to find a restaurant, what do? Hey, Google, what's a restaurant near me? And then you look at the reviews and you look for the ones that don't have 3-star reviews or 4-star reviews or 2-star reviews. You want the 5-star review places, and that's where you go to dinner or go to the movies or how you hire people for all types of things on Angie's List or other facilities. So as a small private practice with 2 locations, between our 2 locations, we have between 250 and 300 reviews on Google currently, and literally every one of them is a 5-star review. So we work hard at maintaining that, and we want feedback if you ever don't have that experience to fix that and make it better. We are, by credentialing standards, ranked in the top 1% in the country. based on our specialization certifications that I mentioned earlier, postdoctoral residencies, fellowships, board certification exams, and specialties. But most important from our perspective, we think our core values matter. When you're treating somebody who's in pain and you're physically touching them and you're doing something that's going to affect that painful area, I think it's really important that we not see people as a commodity or as a body part, but we see them as a person. And each and every person is different. We have to adapt how we do what we do to that individual. So for us, our core values are to be a blessing, number one, to do it with excellence, number two, and to get results, number three. So results is what you come for. Excellence is our responsibility of how to be ready to get you those results. But every human being deserves to be treated well. And if we can't help you, we should help you find somebody who can. So to us, that's part of being a blessing. So that's what we're about as a practice. So if we can help you, whether it's in Arkansas or anywhere else, to find somebody else that can treat you like that, we would be happy to do that. Okay. So from there, maybe move more into some of the ergonomics issues. We can either go into some tips or into or some of the diagrams. Let's see, does anybody have any questions about this or anything that they want to hit before I keep babbling?
Yeah, quick question.
Absolutely.
It's Cyrus. So I have one of those ergonomic stools, the little round ones with the round bottom, and pretty much spend my whole day. I walk a lot around the office. I'm just curious what you think about those.
Okay, fair enough. So there's a lot of versions of ergonomic stools. I'm not sure which one you have. Is it one that has a physio ball in the stool, or is it just have a certain shape?
Yeah, it's round top and bottom, so it is not stable. You can't just sit on it. It'll wobble unless you put some.
Perfect. Keeps you active, right? So my number one tip, if we look at like good posture and bad posture on the diagram here, and in the handout that John's going to send you, there's some additional obligatory diagrams, as I call them, and then there's a lot of links to resources. Everyone, for the most part, knows what good posture is, right? It's lining up your weight over your base of support, right? If we get our center of mass over a base of support, we're more stable. If our center of mass is not over a base of support, we're creating leverage on fulcrums, and therefore we're putting strain on the system, and then that's going to cause problems, right? So if you're on something that's forcing you to balance, it's making you put your center of mass over your base of support. That's great. What's more important about what you're doing there from the one that you've described, the fact that it's wobbly, is that you have to actively use your muscles to hold that position. I think that's critical. One of the biggest questions we get asked is, can I just put a brace on and that'll hold me there? Absolutely, it will. But as soon as you take it off, then what happens? Your muscles that are supposed to hold you there are now weaker because they haven't been working to hold you there. So you really haven't helped yourself. You're putting yourself more at risk for an injury, right? And so one of the things we look at from a functional standpoint is, what are the uses of the muscles and how are we training them? So most people have heard the term core, train your core for your back problem. Everybody heard that? Okay. And what's the number one thing people do to train their core? Sit-ups, right?
Run.
Okay. How many times a day do you sit up from a laying position?
Twice.
Is that a functional exercise? Probably not, right? Training you to sit up. Do you need that muscles function in the task, they're functional within the task. We should train our muscles and our bodies to do the task that they're designed for, right? So the core is really designed to stabilize the body over long periods of time with low load, adjusting as we adapt, moving back and forth, as Cyrus has mentioned about his ball, okay? If we're training it for sit-ups, does that make it good at stabilization over long periods of time? If I do 30 sit-ups in 30 seconds, Am I good at holding my body up over a long period of time in an erect position? Not really. So the training is faulty for the goal that we're trying to achieve. Does that make sense? So Cyrus, it sounds like your ball is probably, your ergonomic chair is probably a good idea for you. There's something else that you said that was really critical. You said you get up and move around a lot. How often?
All the time. I have very short attention span, so yes, all the time.
Yeah.
At least,
With ADHD.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I would, so we have a large office and I do a lot of walking around, and I go to throughout the building, and we have a shop as well. So a lot, all the time.
Excellent. That's probably the most important thing. When a couple of the resources that we linked in there, one of the blogs that was up recently from one of our therapists talked about posture and ergonomics, and he said, not what is the best posture, but what is the next posture. Constantly moving, constantly putting yourself into a different posture is more important than one correct posture. No one can hold a perfect posture all day long. You just can't. Probably the closest are, maybe the British soldiers that stand there and don't flinch or things like that. But in general, for the average human being, especially during a work day when they're trying to focus on other things and their primary mental faculties are focused on other things, we're going to slouch, we're going to move, we're going to slump, we're going to rest, we're going to do all the different things that we all like to do.
Yep.
In and of itself, none of those things are bad unless you're staying in that position for too long. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's more a matter of how long are you in that position, and are you changing frequently enough, and are you activating your muscles to keep moving you through the positions, to keep lubricating your joints, to keep blood flow going. Has anybody ever slept on their arm? Tuck it under your pillow. What happens when you wake up from that? Describe that.
Feels like it's asleep.
Yeah, why does it do that?
It didn't move. No blood flow.
Yeah, the compression stopped blood flow, it stopped nerve flow, it stopped all the normal things of physiology that are supposed to make that vital tissue do what it's supposed to do. And it took some time to get that restarted again. The pins and needles and the stingy and all that fun stuff, no good, right? Well, what makes us think sitting on our butt is any different? Anybody have to drive long hours? I just got back from visiting my daughters in North and South Carolina. Ugh. It's not the best thing, right? So how is that any different if it's a 9 or 10 hour drive than sitting at your computer for 9 or 10 hours a day? It's really not. You're kind of stuck, right? Unless you do like Cyrus does and get up and move a lot and use a ball that helps change your position frequently. And for that matter, if you are driving as part of your work, you should change your position frequently. If you find that perfect position for your car seat, move it frequently. At least every hour, get out, do a rest stop, even if you don't need the restroom, even if you don't need a drink or gas. Get out, move, walk around, then get back in and go again. It's more important that you move frequently than the specific posture you're in. But to the point of the obligatory graphics that we always have to provide, I think most of us already know the common sense things. It is putting your center of gravity over your base of support. It is using your body in the design fashion that it was made, in erect fashion, where you're not slumping, putting leverage. If I sit sideways so that you can see me, I've got my computer on a box to make it high enough, right? If my computer was lower, I would do this. Does anybody do that to get to their computer screen? Right? So that position of my neck, bent over, holding my head, the average head, believe it or not, is about the same size and weight as the average bowling ball, right? Bowling balls range from 8 to 12 pounds, and guess what? So does your noggin, okay? The long, skinny muscles that support your head on your neck, on those moving, flexible bones, okay? They're about the same as these long, skinny muscles in your forearm. If you put a bowling ball perfectly on your fingers and balanced it just right on your bone, you could probably hold it for a little while. If put it out like this and then cranked it up with the bowling ball, how long would anybody last in that position? Not terribly long before you're just dying here, right? And you'd end up with some type of forearm tendonitis, and hopefully you'd get to a good physical therapist to treat that. Sitting in that posture is the same thing for your neck. Wonder why we have so many tension headaches, so many migraines, so many problems with neck aches, so many people who end up blowing out their discs and needing treatment for that. So posture does matter, okay? Frequently moving through posture, using common sense, putting center of mass over base of support, all matters. Adjusting the height of your screen for ergonomics so that it's on level with your eyes, because you're either going to slump with your neck or your back or both to get down to it, right? All those things make sense to everybody, correct? So again, there's some more obligatory graphs and a lot of links of resources on the piece that John will send out to you afterward. Does anybody have more questions specifically about that? No? Okay. So we'll kind of run on to maybe the basic tips slide, John. Will that work?
Yep.
You'll need to cut me off here at some point. So again, just for purposes of something tangible, sometimes everybody comes from a different background. Some people know more, some people know less. Let's keep it relatively basic and simple. You know, making sure that the weight of your arms is supported appropriately. If with my computer up on this box, for me to reach the keyboard, I now have to do this, okay? How well is that going to hold up on these muscles over time? Probably not so well, right? So in that case, I probably want a remote keyboard that's down lower and supported. I want the arms of my chair up to support my elbows so that I'm not hanging them out there in that weird position for a long period of time. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So we want to have good support there. We talked about the head position, trying to keep the weight of your head above. We use that bowling ball analogy so you're not craning your neck. We looked at the slouching posture here. Again, it references the discs in the vertebrae. Does everybody know what a disc is in the back, or does anybody not know? Cyrus does know. Had trouble with that in the past, have you, Cyrus?
Yep, both on my neck and lower back.
And what ended up happening? Did you end up needing surgery, or did you get resolution or not?
So I had on the neck, there was a concern about, and it's kind of funny because I've had very good experience with physical therapy and pretty bad as well. But on the neck, they never really resolved it. I ended up resolving it myself by doing a lot of push-ups and other exercises to strengthen my neck and upper back. And then the lower back was, I had a bulging disc, but part of the issue is I have an issue somewhere on my lower hip, and then it's all the way down to my leg, and they found something on my back. So a lot of the similar exercises that you mentioned, a lot of strengthening the core, as you mentioned.
Okay, good. Yeah, and so both things that you mentioned there from a simplistic point of view, that whole neck issue, right? You mentioned the push-ups and things, and that may not make sense to people why a push-up would help. But if we look at the shoulder blades and the back muscles, and that posture necessitates us, unless we're going to stare at the ground, to lift our head up. It does all those bad things I talked about with the bowling ball. So really, to fix this, what we really need to fix is this, right? You go into that posture and you're doing push-ups, which is what the most common military exercise out there, right? So a lot of us, especially in the NMTC, and work closely with the military. Has anyone besides me noticed that every military in the world has the same posture? Did we notice? Go back through history, go back and look at the Greeks, the Romans, any large civilization, they all have the same posture. Why does the military have that posture? Just coincidence, or does it form, or you know?
Good training.
Because if you want good fighting machines, because why?
Good training.
Training, right. So they're trained in that for a reason, because it makes them good fighting machines. right? If you're using the machine according to its design, we talked about design and function, right? It's going to be the most efficient. If you've got a lot of breakdown in all your equipment, you're not going to have a good warfare unit, right? So if all the tanks are broken down, you're in trouble. If all the planes are broken down, you're in trouble. If all your soldiers are broken down, you're in really big trouble. Right? So keeping the soldiers fit and that good posture that's so common in the military, and it goes all the way back to the Greeks and Romans. If you study art, we're the first to study the human anatomy, right? You look at art and you look at all the nudes from Greek and Roman art and architecture, they were the first to study anatomy. In fact, they're the father of modern medicine. We take the Hippocratic Oath in medicine, right? So we've got two great philosophers of modern medicine. We've got Hippocrates of the Greeks, and Hippocrates says, in the first instance, do no harm, right? And then we've got the great Dr. Clint Eastwood. Does everybody know what Clint says? Clint says, man's got to know his limitations, right? Which is another good thing to be aware of, right? So knowing your limitations, not pushing too hard, good core posture, using the muscles according to design, not putting it in a position where it's stressed, getting treatment fast enough, getting early intervention, finding somebody that is good and that you have rapport with are all parts of the care, right? So avoid eye strain, making sure the monitor is not too close. Before you all got on, I was talking to John, I was apologizing. I was lifting my glasses up and down because during COVID, my trifocals got broken. So I'm down to bifocals, and that's not quite the right spot for a computer screen. A challenge. I have to keep moving to find where I can see things. Take steps to control the screen glare. Everybody knows, don't sit with the light at your back. If you need to put a screen filter on it, if you wear glasses, they usually help filter it for you. And taking the rest periodically for your eyes. If you're getting up and moving around physically, that's already automatic. You're going to be doing that. So sometimes it's an advantage to be ADHD, right, Cyrus? And then your feet shouldn't be dangling or hanging. And that kind of goes to what you're saying about the pain in your back and the problem down there going down your leg. What that is we've got a brain that sits in our skull. We've got a spinal cord that goes down inside our spinal column. And we've got nerves running out at each and every level where there's little spacers are. Those discs create space. They give room for nerves to run out. Okay. And if those nerves get pinched, it's just like if you parked your car on the garden hose. If you've got a sprinkler in the front yard and you park your car on the garden hose, what happens to the sprinkler? Right? It's kind of like sleeping on your arm again. So then you start getting symptoms down the pathway of that nerve. You can go into your butt, down into your thigh, into your leg, and all the way to your foot. Similarly, in the neck, it goes into your shoulder, your chest, and your shoulder blade. It goes into your arm, and it can go all the way down to your hand and fingertips. So if you're experiencing any of those things, those are part of the problems that you want to get treated if you've had it more than a week. Certainly, if it's up to 3 weeks, you want to get professional help for it. In the meantime, keeping your legs supported, use a stool if you need to, or get the right height chair. Any questions, thoughts, commentary, suggestions?
Kevin, there was one question about the difference. It was like, I guess there's 3 things you could do. Sit at a desk, you could stand at a desk, and the latest now is the treadmill desk.
Yes.
Any comments on those 3 postures?
Yes. So based on what I've said so far, the answer is yes, all of the above. Right.
Okay.
So keep moving. Is any one better than the other is kind of the question behind the question. Right. So movement is good. So is anybody going to stay at the treadmill for 8 hours a day? Unlikely, right? Can anybody keep perfectly erect sitting posture for 8 hours a day? Has anybody been to a concert, an event where they had to stand for prolonged periods of time?
Yeah.
Doesn't that hurt just as much as sitting?
Yeah, trade shows.
Yeah, so it's brutal, right? So
Exactly.
posture for too long is not going to be good. So that kind of fits in with the theme that I'm talking about of keep moving, keep changing postures. When you're in a posture, do it according to good body mechanics, right? You all know what that is. Again, the military posture, the obligatory graphics, all those things, center of mass, over base of support, but constantly moving between the different postures, using all the resources. You know, the desks that go from standing to sitting. I've got one of those over where my main computer is. That helps me keep shifting. I've got this other one here that I move up and down with a box. When I'm in more formal, less formal situations, I walk around and talk if I'm not on a video screen, if I'm on a conference call. Just constantly moving is a good thing. Does that answer that question?
Yes.
You know, I've heard that people who are perfectly healthy, who sit for a living, are in at greater risk of having an, earlier departure, I guess. You know, they die sooner than people who have heart disease, diabetes, and other ailments naturally who move and stand for a living. So just the act of standing alone, if you do nothing else, is better than just sitting all day, which I do sit all day, but I also run a lot. So I think I try to make up for that.
Yes. So some of the more recent studies in the last number of years have come out and said that sitting is the new smoking. That kind of go along with what you're saying there. And yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So as our society has progressed from an agrarian society to an industrial society, blue collar to white collar to now we're probably the information society is one of the more common terms that I hear now. There's a challenge in our inactivity. And obviously we can't go anywhere outside without walking around and taking a look at the health of our people and say, gosh, just by a visual look, it's probably not as good as it ought to be, right? I know I look in the mirror, hey, the last several months of stress and inactivity haven't been healthy for my waistline. So yes, when you start combining inactivity, long postures, one of the things that's interesting about our bodies and the way the physiology works is that stress is stress is stress. And what I mean by that is if you're under physical duress, your body releases certain stress hormones and chemicals that activate certain systems. If you're under mental stress, the same hormones and chemicals are released. Emotional stress, the same. So as our society has shifted away from more physical activity that provides an outlet, everyone likes to go back to if the tiger is going to bite you, then you need the fight or flight stress so that you can either fight the tiger or fly from the tiger, right? But if you sit at your desk trying to meet deadlines all day and you're trying to come through that day after day for a 30+ year career, and you're not going out and running in the evening, or you're not moving around like Cyrus does frequently, or you're not fidgety and ADHD, or moving onto a standing position or getting a walking treadmill desk or whatever, then what's the outlet for that stress hormone? How does your body process that hormone in a healthy way? It doesn't. And that stress hormone actually causes deterioration within your body. Does that make sense? Okay. So yes, activity is completely necessary. Again, whether you're doing running or push-ups or working out, a lot of people learned to work out virtually during COVID, going to a health club. Let's keep in mind, even those that are working out at home right now, do we have folks that normally go to a health club that are working out at home? Anybody besides me? Okay. Is there anything you miss about the health club? No? Okay, Cyrus, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. I'm a person that prefers my private time. I recharge alone. I'm a little bit more of an introvert. But even me as an introvert, I've learned that social interaction is also a part of how we process stress. It's also a very important part of our health, right? And one of the biggest problems during COVID has been the isolationism that has occurred. People aren't getting the normal social interactions that they're used to. And it's a very big stress and a very big problem for their health. So that's been an issue that's been developing, and it'll be really interesting to unpack the studies on that over the next number of years, as I'm sure they'll come out to see what the social impact you know, especially like on school children. What's the impact on education of not having the social interactions? That's going to be an interesting one.
Well, I will tell you, I have an 11-year-old, and one, I've been working remote for about 7 years, and so my social interactions have actually increased because everybody else is now in my office. So I attend a lot more webinars, so it's really good. And my 11-year-old is an avid gamer. And, you know, at first I was just like, okay, I don't want you playing a lot of games, but then I realized that's where he's getting his socialization right now, team building, going out and, you know, conquering the world on Arc or what have you. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not going to limit that. That's really his only socialization. So I think there's definitely ways that you can deal with it. Just are people, do they recognize that need in their life, and are they getting what they need through the different ways to get there from here?
Absolutely. And we're all learning to adapt. I think that's astute of you to recognize that in your son and to promote that healthy interaction with his peers. Even if it's in a different format, it's better than not having it, right? Again, it's a different amount for each of us, but we're all going to need it. And similarly, each of us have a different base metabolism. So some of us need to be more careful about our diets and exercise more if we want to stay healthy. Others can get away with more. And in the same way, we'll look at that with this whole issue of sitting and health. Some people are just more prone genetically or through their background and history to have breakdown of their discs or to have problems with their nerves. You know, sorry, you got the short straw, but you're just going to have to learn to take care of that, right? So you have to adapt to who you are, but you absolutely positively do need to be conscious of it and constantly being addressing it. So whether it's running, moving around a lot, it still keeps coming back to the same thing. Frequently moving, frequently changing positions, being conscientious about it. So that it's not like smoking 2 packs a day, which is what those studies claim. Working at a desk is worse than smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. That's a pretty big claim.
All right,
I truly believe it too. For the first 6 years, 5 years that I worked remotely, I gained a lot of weight, and it was just from sitting here and not running. So it took a lot of work to get that off, but it was worth it. And I'm, like you said, obesity runs in my family, so it'll just be a lifelong battle for me. I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm 90 and I'm not able to, you know, go run marathons. That's going to be a challenge for me. Eat a lot less.
Well, kudos to you for addressing it, Cindy. That's great.
Thanks.
All right, Kevin and team, we're at the 10 minutes to go point. Normally now we would turn it over to Q&A, but everybody's been generous with their questions, and Kevin has been generous with his answers. So why don't we just continue for those that have questions of Kevin. And Kevin, if you have any questions too of the people, you know, on the call today.
Well, as I told you earlier, I can babble forever, so I think I've done that. You know, definitely, I want to know if there's things that you all have curiosity about or need access to, or, you know, what could we do to help you? What can I do in this time, or what could we provide for you as a resource? We've got everything from blogs to social media to a whole library of videos online, and I think you'll get links to a few of those things through what's going to be sent out afterward by John. But what might you have now that I could help you with, maybe as a quick and dirty, particular problems?
So how often would you recommend? So I run probably 30 plus miles a week. How often would you recommend massage therapy for that much running?
So back to our prior thing of each person is going to be a little bit different, right? I would say massage therapy is a great component to add into the mix. But I would also ask you, what are you doing in terms of a stretching regimen?
Oh, I stretch before I run, and then after, usually in a hot shower. And sitting at the desk, I often have a lot of pain through my shoulders, and I'll like slap on a TENS unit. But I've been seeing a massage therapist, well, until over the last 4 months, every month. I'd go for like a 90-minute session. on a monthly basis. And I just didn't know if that was enough. Obviously, I haven't been in several months, and so my body's dying, but otherwise, okay.
So although it's a different profession, it's a highly related one, and we actually have an independent massage therapist that works out of our office, and I'm an advocate of massage therapy for people as a maintenance routine, which is how you're using it, and at times it can be a treatment. And again, if it's more of a complicated thing, it might need to move along the continuum of care. I would go to what's the effect that you're getting, right? So if you're saying once a month is working for you and you're not having pain or problems in between, then that's great. But if you're finding that, 2 weeks into your month, you're starting to have the return of the aches and pains or cramps that you weren't having, then you might need to go every 2 weeks. Obviously, it's always a balance with the finances and, but I guess one of the things, again, that's a little bit of a pet peeve for me on a personal basis is the things that we spend our money on so often might be less important than our health if we thought about it. We just don't think about it, right? If we think about the other things that we spend money on and compare them mentally, is that more important than my health? If the answer is no, then get busy on your health. So you're doing that. I would encourage you to keep doing that. It really is going to be more of a balancing act of your symptoms. But when I hear you're putting a TENS unit on for what sounds like an ongoing issue in the neck and shoulder area, that would fall under the category of you should seek treatment for that. Okay? The TENS unit is like taking Tylenol. It's going to help mask the pain. It's going to help temporarily resolve the inflammation. But if you're doing it for more than a week to 3 weeks, that same thing that I said before, then you've got at this point a chronic problem, but you're not addressing the underlying chronic problem. Does that make sense? So go
It does. It does.
chronic problem, get that handled, okay? And you won't have to keep putting the TENS unit on.
All right, will do. Thank you.
Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? We call curbside assessments for injured workers or injured athletes.
I have a question, Kevin.
Sure.
The screen has been below your eye level, as it is with me. I'm sitting at a desk. It's a comfortable chair. It's not anything special. Is that okay as long as I, keep the spine in line?
It certainly can be.
It's one of the diagrams looked like you had the screen was a little bit higher up, so almost eye level.
Right, and so that's what I mentioned that as I do Zoom meetings, I do them from my laptop, and I've got it sitting on, to be perfectly blunt, it's an Amazon box that I found. Who doesn't have a bunch of Amazon boxes sitting around, right? So I found one that was right for me, that when I'm sitting in a good erect posture, and I don't have to do this to get to it, instead of doing that, I can sit up and keep my weight over my base of support, and then go, okay, if I'm in the top third of that screen, more or less about a third of the way down, that's about right to be in a place where I can see everything, I'm on height for the camera, and I'm not cheating with my body to get to where I need to be. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does.
You don't have to spend a ton of money on those kind of things, and we don't get them anymore, but it used to be phone books, right? We used to tell people to put phone books under their monitor.
Right.
People don't even know what a phone book is anymore. My kids have never had a phone book.
Any thoughts on ergonomic keyboards if they're still out there? I don't know. There used to be.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't see a problem with them, but I would go back to if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? If you don't have an issue, everybody's different. If you look at every single laptop out there is a different size. Every keyboard that comes out is slightly different. Everybody's hands are a different size. Everybody's shoulder width is a different size. Everybody's fingers are a different size. So there is no one size fits all for that. It's find what's comfortable for you where you're supported and it's not putting your wrist, your elbows, your shoulders, your neck in a strained position, and work from there, right? If the one that you're working for isn't working, by all means, try different ones. Kind of goes back to I tried physical therapy and doesn't work. Okay? It's that commodity mentality that one size should fit all. One size doesn't fit all. It just doesn't. That's a fallacy. So find one that works for you and then stick with it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Kevin, I did send you a stand recommendation because I have a stand that's not an Amazon box, and it's quite cool and more efficient for stacking things on and around it. So,
Appreciate it.
and get your eye level with everybody. So it's good. Share it with everybody else if you like, or if you guys want the recommendation too, just connect with me and I'll be happy to share.
Well, thank you, Cindy. Thank you. Well, everybody, I thank you all for being on the call today, and I'd just like to go back to the opening slide where we started, and letting you know about the Northeastern Maryland Technology Council. And this is an example of the programs we put on, and I know Ernie Tompkins is on the line. And Ernie, thank you again for all the great work you've done with us over the last few weeks for our technical programs. So I appreciate your support on that.
No problem.
And we're welcome, everybody, if you have a topic of interest that you think would be something valuable for our audience, please let me know. And especially if you know of a speaker that would like to talk about it, that's even more welcome. So again, thank you all for being on the water cooler. Our next one is always the first Thursday of the month. And that's in, I think, August the 6th is the next one. We're looking at a topic involving going back to school. So we're looking for people from our education system to talk about it. And again, thanks to Kevin Murray at Gold Medal. Kevin, thank you for helping us get healthy.
Thanks for the
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you,
Kevin.
Thanks,
John.
Kevin.
Thank you,
Okay.
Kevin. Thanks,
Bye.
John.
Good to see you.
Okay, we'll see you next week. If you want to be on our Tech Key program, it's on social media, and that's next Wednesday at 8 in the morning. It's on our website. So
Right.
see you there.
Thanks,
Tom.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. John, will you need anything else from me to be able to send out to them?
Kevin, no, I think what you sent me, I'll just send that in an attachment. If you could think, if anything else you'd like, obviously I'll send it.